Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of Health Talks with Dr. Trinh. The one show, maybe the only show that shows you the path to a healthier life, one conversation at a time. And today, we've got a conversation with people, it seems like it's halfway around the world. Who we got with us today, Dr. Trinh?
Yes, this is kind of like my family in the Philippines. There are, this is Anne, Carl, and basically, this is the team that makes everything flow. The podcast we do, the social media that we post, whether it's on Tongue Out or on Health Talks or other locations, there or LinkedIn or TikTok videos.
TikTok. You're not a TikToker, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got to see my ice bath video.
Oh, okay. Do you dress up as a brain or anything? Do you do anything like that? Do you have a giant brain
this is
costume?
the team that makes it happen.
Okay.
In the background where I would just go do a talk or a lecture, and they'll put it on a podcast. They'll create snippets of videos and short reels and things of that sort, and put it on social media. So this is an extension of Dr. Trin's team here in the Philippines.
Welcome. I have known of your existence, but we've never connected before. We've never talked face to face here. And I wore in celebration the T-shirt that says it all. There's only 3 things to do in life. You eat, you sleep, you podcast, and then you repeat.
Hey.
You do it all over again here. And the same could be said for social media. You eat, you sleep, you do social media, and you do it all over again here.
Yes.
Welcome. Why don't you identify yourselves? We have Ann Garcia and some others here. So who you got? Welcome, Ann. Identify yourself and who else is with you.
All right. So good morning, and we're just very thankful to be, invited. Again, as Dr. Trinh and Paul said, I am Ann Garcia, and with me is my husband, Carl, and we are part of Team Declutter, which is actually, it just warms my heart, and it makes my heart sing that Dr. Trinh said that we are an extension of his family, because that's precisely how we feel about Dr. Trinh as well. So a short just introduction about us.
Right.
So again, we are Team Declutter, and we are a digital marketing agency here in the Philippines. I know that the rest of the team is just watching live. So hi, everyone. Hopefully, we'll get to invite you later before the episode ends. But again, thank you so much, Paul. It's so nice to, finally be on air with you. We've been producing this show for, I think, since 2021. So about 2 years now. And it's actually a dream come true, a bucket list for us to be able to be on the same arena as you.
So how did you guys get into doing what you're doing? Give us some background. And then how did you meet Dr. Trinh half a world away?
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to go? Or
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. So actually, everything started with me stumbling upon the world of virtual assistants, which is, I think in 2017, I just retired from my corporate job due to a health condition. And I was really looking for a career that would allow me to be, still be productive, but at the same time, do something that I love, try new interests, and then learn new things. So
And what corporate job did you retire from?
It's actually still in marketing, but I'm part of a large commercial bank here in the Philippines. So I handled e-commerce and digital banking, which was, I think, 9 years ago or 8 years ago, if my memory serves me right. So I was in virtual assistance. I handled several clients until I met this woman named Jacqueline Malone, who hired me back then to be a podcast editor. And then the rest is history. Like any business, our team or our agency also grew a lot during the pandemic because there were a lot of businesses that needed to bring their brick and mortar shops online.
Mhm.
And at the same time, there were people who started master classes. There were business people who needed to establish their personal brand.
Right.
So that was really how we were able to grow that opportunity and, enjoy the team, the agency, the business that we have today.
So how did you meet him, Dr. Trinh? How did you stumble upon these people in the Philippines?
Well, when we started our show together, Pa, you and you told me make a podcast out of this. I followed your instructions, and here we are, and here's the podcast team.
There you go. But I guess what I'm getting at is the Philippines is a very common place now for Americans to find virtual help, whether it's scheduling, whether it's editing, whether it's posting, it's all these back end offices. And I wonder how you find good help in the Philippines, because there's millions of people doing this now. And partly because there's always been sort of a connection between the U.S. and the Philippines, dating back through our long, sometimes troubled relationship with the Philippines and whatnot. And the fact that you're speaking English. I'm not looking for a digital assistant in Vietnam. Talk about that. How has this grown into being such a big industry in the Philippines? And how do I find somebody? I don't know anybody in the Philippines.
Well, now you do.
Now I do. So we'll ask our husband here. How did you get it brought into this thing here? Did you jump in and say, here's a great opportunity? And then how do you market yourselves in the midst of millions of people doing these things, or a lot of people doing these things?
Yeah, that's a good question, Paul. I think the reason why the Philippines is marketable when it comes to virtual assistance is that majority of the people here, if I'm not mistaken, is about service-based.
Mm-hmm.
And we are taking English classes seriously when we are in college. And at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we are ready for international communications.
Yeah.
And then we learn a lot of business process to make sure that whatever it is that is needed abroad can be sourced out here. And not to mention the fact that we are low cost when it comes to our services.
Yeah, I mean, it's very cost efficient. And at the same time, I think it's a natural path for Filipinos to, I would say, stumble across this industry just because we're very amiable people. Like, it's easy to work with us.
It seems like it. So far, you haven't. So far, I haven't said to myself, "Oh boy, these people are trouble," or "These people are difficult." I don't like these people.
Thank you.
Philippine culture. I know very little about it, other than it here in the United States.
Mhm.
I know that many service-oriented professions, like nursing in particular, or maybe like social media, are filled with people from the Philippines. Is that a natural? You said the culture there is a, I don't know. Everybody seems to be kind and they want to be helpful, so they gravitate into jobs like nursing and social media rather than being, I don't know, a stockbroker or a car dealer, something that seems to me more abrasive and difficult or whatever. I don't know. I don't see a lot of Philippine people pushing car sales on me. You know what I'm saying? It's like they seem to be in kind of professions that are helpful and they're kind. And is that just a stereotype or is that real?
It's both a stereotype, but it's a stereotype for a reason.
Right.
Because yes, you're correct. Not Filipinos are very caring by nature.
And I think the term is hospitable.
Hospitable.
I mean, even
Right.
in our households, we
Just in my family alone, like 4 of my aunts and uncles are in the States, and they have very successful careers as nurses. So even in our generation, a lot of millennials and Gen Z Filipinos do find success abroad. Your brother, of course, and my sister-in-law is also in Australia. So yes, there is something about the Filipino culture that just is very attractive to work with simply because we're just, very easygoing people. And at the same time, we always give 110% of our efforts. When we say that we will do something, we'll make sure that that really gets done. We'll get the job done. And I do love how Dr. Trinh also phrased it earlier, that he said, this is the team that makes everything flow, because that's everything that our team represents. I don't know if you noticed, but our team is called The Clutter. We kind of played with the spelling a bit, but the reason why we named our company or our team or our business that is because that's our mission is to help businesses, innovators, entrepreneurs, creators to
Creators,
just
yeah, a lot of
streamline their workflow to make sure that everything is enjoyable, organized, productive, efficient, so that they can focus on the more core parts of their business. Like in Dr. Chin's case, he can just focus on being the best doctor that he can be. He's the premier
the
doctor
best
in
TikToker he can be. He can be the best
TikToker.
TikToker he can
He's
be.
Or
all
he even can spend more time in the gym.
in the gym.
He needs to do
doing
that.
his ice baths.
Yeah.
Or an ice
No, but
bath.
yeah,
Right.
he is out and about. He's always in all these, blogs, media
Yeah.
features. I do believe that a part of that is to our help, because we're able to take a lot of the legwork off of his plate.
So
that
let me
he
give
can,
you, just from my perspective, the importance of what you do. I don't think it gets stated enough. My job is to help people create content, in this case, podcasts or live streams. We stream it over YouTube. We stream it over our internet radio station. We turn it into recorded podcasts. And so we can help get it online. But everybody thinks that's where it stops. Oh, great. I created a show. I created some content. I put it on YouTube. I'm done. And I say, that's just the beginning. When I was in real radio, I was in what they now call terrestrial radio, legacy radio, old-fashioned radio. We put a lot of effort into creating a show, to getting a guest, but then we streamed it out over a radio tower, and within minutes, it evaporated. It was gone. If somebody was listening, great. If nobody was listening, too bad. Tune in tomorrow. When the show was over, it was over. We never did anything with it. It was all about creating the content, putting it out into the ether, not the Ethernet, but the ether. It would just sort of evaporate and disappear into the world. Now, when you create content, whether it's YouTube or a podcast or a written blog or pictures on Instagram, all this stuff, you got to push it. You got to do something with it. It isn't enough just to create it, and it's a two-step process. You got to post it somewhere. I can't just take a picture. I got to put it up on Instagram. I got to write something about it. I got to put it on Facebook. I got to write something about it. I got to create a video and write something about it. So there's an effort, a back-end effort that you got to do something with it, and then you got to push it. Otherwise, it gets lost in the sea in the noise. It's a bunch of clutter out there. And so it isn't just you helping them make life easier. You're making it work. If it doesn't, we could have the best show in the world, and I could stream it everywhere I stream it. But if nobody edits it and posts it and pushes it afterwards, it's like old-fashioned radio. It just evaporates. It just disappears. So I think that's a really important part of the process. And I tell you, from my own perspective, I've been doing this now 12 years, 13 years.
Wow.
How many years, Dr. Trinh? I've been doing it 3 or 4 or 5 years or something. It's a real eye-opener to content creators when they realize, you mean I not only got to create the stuff, I got to publish it, I got to promote it? Yeah, I can do some of that. It's a three-legged stool. OC Talk Radio has a certain audience, and we can help push it and promote it. But the hosts, like Dr. Trinh, is using it internally to their social media feeds, to their Facebook live feeds, to their TikTok channels. That requires somebody to do it. And that's an effort that most content creators aren't ready to do, or are stunned the amount of work it takes to do that. Talk about that, Dr. Trinh. That's a lot of back-end work to make this. It's like a regular radio show or a TV show. There's a lot of production that has to go on.
It's like the Wizard of Oz. Remember how you meet the wizard at the end?
Yeah, he pulls open the
And
curtain.
He looks like some big scary wizard, but when you open the curtain, he's this little guy.
Right.
That's this big old production,
Right.
and that production is because of the team that
Right.
produces, his image of the Wizard of Oz.
And I'll tell you the number one reason that all of this stuff fails, we'll call it all social media, whether it's audio like a podcast or video like YouTube or even written stuff like blogs and other things, it fails because it's inconsistent. You don't do it on a regular basis, so people never knows when the next one's coming out, and they give up. They don't follow you. They quit looking for it because they never know when it's going to come out. Or even worse, I see people create stuff and then they don't do anything with it, or they don't promote it. So it's like they stuck it in a drawer. We go to all this effort to get a great show, and then we just stick it in a drawer. I'll publish that later. I'll do something. I'll pull out a piece later. I'll write something about it later, and later never comes. So it's like, why do all this? And so people give up podcasts, video, all this stuff, because they go, I love doing the show. I love telling stories. I love meeting people and the conversations. I hate the back end work. I hate the publishing and promoting. And I don't do it very well, and therefore it kills the whole project here. Talk about that. Well, you must have lots of clients that have that. They come to you not just to save time, but to save the whole project. Otherwise, the whole thing fails and they give up.
Yeah, and the thing is, Paul, is that whenever you are introduced to podcasts and its potential, as a person who wanted to do the podcast, you will be enamored by it. But once you get to the reality of it, the back end, the platforms, the things that you want, you need to learn in terms of how to put your content out there. That's where things gets overwhelming. So if you are not prepared to do such things and you have a lot of things on your priority list, you might kiss your podcasting dreams goodbye and be hindered by these.
Right. Or in the same thing, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all these channels we have available to us. If you don't realize what you're getting into and have a team to help you, you can drown in the details. You can give up doing it, not because it doesn't work, but because you don't have the time to make it work or the team to make it work.
Can I add to that, Paul? Because there's just so much to unpack about what you said and Dr. Chen and Carl. But before I do, our team chat is just blowing up because I can see the notifications, and our operations manager said, Ron said, well said, Paul. So there was something about what you said earlier that I really wanted to just nail down. And it's about extending the life of your content.
Yes.
I love what you said earlier about the radio show just evaporating into thin air. That's where we come in, and that's what we really thrive on and we get excited about. Like we like extracting the gems, the treasures inside each episode, to highlight something that, Dr. Trinh said something about this, and Paul made a very witty comment about this episode. So
always. That happens always.
Always. So you'll definitely see those tidbits, those clips, that footage here and there. We're going to quote you. And the beauty of it is that if you go to Dr. Trin's page and any of our clients, some of the content, most of the content you'll see are things that you guys said like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, red light therapy, CBD. These episodes are like 3-4 months old. But when you read it, it's still fresh information, and you get so much value out of that 1 hour that you guys talked about.
Let's talk about that for 1 second, because that was, to me, a shocker when I started this 12, 13 years ago. I thought it was all about creating the content, good conversations, good guests, good information, right? And I still believe that. But I didn't realize that it isn't like the old movie, the Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come. If I simply create good content, somehow it'll get found virally. Somehow people will share it. Somehow magic. Well, all I do is just put it out, and then the magic of the internet discovers it and finds it and everything. It isn't that easy, particularly in today's world, because when I started, there were 250,000 podcasts. Imagine that. There were only 250,000 podcasts. Now there's 2.5 million and growing. Might be 3.5 million. The simply when channels like TikTok and Instagram didn't exist. So now you've got all these places to do this stuff here, and it just means that you get lost if you don't do it right, you don't do it regularly, you just do it randomly and whenever you feel like it. All that effort goes to waste if you don't promote it and push it out there properly.
Yeah.
How did you
And
learn?
really,
I was going to say, how did you learn to do this? How did you? It isn't easy to figure this out.
well, content repurposing and just finding those gems, it's a skill on its own that you really,
Yes.
get to practice. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we really love what we do. Like
It
we
shows, yeah.
we treat our clients' shows and their businesses like our own. Their success is our success. Their challenges are our challenges as well. I mean, that's how we value our clients, our shows that we produce. And to your point earlier about Field of Dreams, suffice to say, nowadays, you really have to fight for that digital real estate, that space
That
for you
attention to get found. Everybody's holding up their. Imagine everybody going. This is my analogy. This is my way of viewing it. Imagine if we all went down to it, and this is so old fashioned. I'm going to date myself. In America, in small towns like the ones I grew up in, there was a town square. There was the center of the town, and they had a little bandstand, and they had a place, and people would gather to hear concerts in the summer, and they would hear debates. And this is a very romantic image of America that probably doesn't fit most people anymore. But there was a place you gathered, and then you stood up and you talked, and whether it was the town hall or the town square.
Town hall. That was my thought.
Yeah, it was a place everybody came together as a community, and you talked. So imagine if everybody in town showed up and started screaming at once. Hey, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. It'd be chaos. In the old days, there was you got on a speaker's list, and everybody got their chance to talk, and everybody was going to the same channel. Now there's millions of town halls, and everybody's filled with millions of people, and everybody's screaming to be heard. It's chaos if you don't do it right. The internet has a protocol. There's ways to get found. There's ways to get discovered. There's ways to share. There's a way to get heard, more than just showing up and waving your hand or screaming out loud. And that's what people don't realize. So there's lots of channels, and it's not easy to get heard on any one of them anymore here because there's so many people there.
And this is where podcast strategy will take place when it comes to our experience, because the thing is, you need to identify your audience behavioral patterns in order for you to come up with a very good content, so that when they consume it, they value it the most.
Right. And maybe they'll share it. That's what everybody's dream is. They don't just listen, but then they'll share it.
Precisely.
Right, exactly.
Yes. So also, I would like to give credit to the technical backend that we have in the team, because when we started this company, we partner with the guys who knows the technical know-how in terms of enhancing the audio. Without them, as much as we wanted to do the editing and gem mining of repurposing the content, it will be a difficult task.
Yes, because podcasting is still primarily an audio experience.
Right.
So even if you're just recording at the comfort of your room, such as us, making those little investments of just a little bit of soundproofing, investing on a mic that's not gonna break the bank. I mean, those are little things
and isn't
that
going to irritate the listener when they hear it. That's another common complaint I have. People come to me and say, I want to do a live show over our radio station, over our podcast channels. I say, great. Who is it? What do you want to talk about? Who do you want to go after? Who's the audience? And we talk about all this pre-production planning, like we're making a movie. And then what's the story? What's the sound? What's the theme? All this effort, we go into it. And then I say, how are we going to make this sound as good as possible? I offer a studio where people can come into, but not everybody can do that. Dr. Trinh doesn't come in very often. So now they have a home studio and other things. And the number one problem with content is they don't do it very often, and doesn't get found. They don't know what to do with it. This number two problem is it is more than just the quality. It's more than just the conversation. It's the quality of the recording and the quality of the conversation. And when we're all using Zoom, we think, well, that's easy. I'll just be anywhere. But it sounds like this, and you're wondering why this content's not working. Nobody's listening because they can't understand it. Talk about that. The difficulties of trying to fix something. People always say, well, just fix it. I said, I can't fix it. Garbage in, garbage out, the old computer idea. You know, I can only fix it so much if the sound is bad, if there's airplanes going by, if the lighting is terrible, all this stuff here. So I'm always trying to work with them to get the best quality possible. But you can improve it, but you can't fix it if it's bad.
Agree. If you're in a restaurant business, you don't want to serve an uncooked food.
There you go.
So it's like serving an uncooked food.
Right.
Yeah. What you said about garbage in, garbage out, that's not really gonna fly with our team. Like, I know for a fact that they will really do their very best. We use several different kinds of software that would, we use plugins. We make sure that, we can apply different levels of technical editing just to make sure that we can maximize or enhance the sound, the audio as much as we can. Of course, there's always going to be those technical difficulties like internet drop or, just signal stuff. But as much as we can, we do our best to improve. In fact, a good example would be how we prepared for this podcast. Actually, an hour before our call, we already set up, we practiced with our team, we made sure we recorded and listened to the recording to make sure that, we're not capturing any unnecessary ambient noises like the AC, or dogs barking or something like that. Yeah. Thankfully, it's almost 12 midnight here, so there are
everybody's asleep.
Yes, it's actually advantageous for us.
Yes.
So let's and with the time left, let's talk about one of the third problem. We talked about people jump into this. I want to be a TikToker. I want to be on Facebook. I want to be a podcaster. I want to be on YouTube. I want to do all this. And then there's some planning. I help them through the planning and I help them produce the content. But then they got to promote it and they got to post it and they got to push it out. That's where you guys come in. The thing that shocked me the most about all content, whether it's a podcast or YouTube, is how long it lives. When I did real radio, the shelf life was 30 seconds. It immediately disappeared the minute we put it out. Nowadays, when you record it and archive it and store it on YouTube or you put it on Facebook, people suddenly stumble across it 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years later, like it's brand new. I'm watching a Netflix series. I think it was on Amazon originally. It's not Netflix. I think it was on Amazon called Vikings. And it was a very popular series. Everybody loved the Vikings. And somehow I didn't get into it. I didn't watch it. And the other night, a couple of weeks ago, I'm looking for something to watch. And I said, oh, there's that series. I wonder I never did see that. It's 5 years old, 3 years old. And I start watching. I get hooked on it. Now I've been watching it for weeks. Every time I come home, I race to go watch the next episode here. And I laugh. This team has long since left. They stopped producing this show years ago. And yet, to me, it's brand new. And I'm telling people about it. And I'm giving them a plug today. It lives on. Does this stuff live on for 20 years? Does Dr. Trin's show on red light therapy going to get found 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And people are going to react like it's brand new? If that's true, then you better make sure you store this, that you record it right, you store it right, you do something with it, because it doesn't disappear anymore here. Talk about that. It lives forever almost.
Wow. I'd love to. But before that, I do want to ask Dr. Trin, because Dr. Trin is a good example of a lot of our clientele. And I do want to ask, Dr. Trin, do you enjoy the promo part of podcasting? Like, do you enjoy sharing content? Do you enjoy, posting on social media
Finding the
about
right
your
social media tags and all the
yeah.
other stuff. The SEO to get it
I wa-
maximized.
I'd love to, yeah. I'd love to
He
know
loves
Dr.
that
Chin.
stuff. That's what he lives for. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's much needed as well. The reels, the short clips, things of that sort. If if you go on our Health Talks Facebook, the short reels gets the most views.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And the little sizzle, right?
Right.
And
Because everybody wants you to digest it down. They may
Yeah.
listen to it. I find this is the way it works for me, at least. People are stuck in their car. They're at home. They're at the gym. They got time to kill.
Yep.
And they can't read because they're mobile or they're moving around. And they only got a 4-inch screen, so it's hard to read anyway. They're all on their smartphone here, so there's only so much space that they can read. So they really want to talk. They want to listen or they want to watch during that time. I got
Yep.
time to kill. Tell me a story. Now, later, when they're busy, they want a summary. They want a snippet. They want a sound bite. They want give me the sizzle. Give me something to
Yep.
do because I'm busy. I'm just looking at stuff. But in the moment of listen, so I think that's why live is important, because there are people that have time to kill. They don't want to sizzle. Don't tell me the 30-second version. I got 30 minutes before I get there. What am I going to do? I'm like an audiobook. You can unfold it slowly. I'll listen to the whole story, and I'll listen to it week after week after week because I'm driving the same time. But at some point, they want to hear the summary, the soundbite, the snippet. That's where you guys come in. How do you find that gold within the conversation? How do you find that gold nugget?
Well, I love what you said that about, some people preferring the 30-second versus other people who like the 30-minute version. And
Right.
a lot of content consumption is behavioral, just as Carl mentioned earlier. So the careful balance of producing both long form content and short form content is
Right.
super important, because
Right.
you don't want to bore your audience, but at the same time, you don't want to miss out on very important information. So that's why Dr. Chin's show is a good example, because we preserve both the long version and then we cut it up to, bite-sized pieces or
Right.
bite-sized content, as you said earlier. And I do also want to point out, because you mentioned about people finding out about like an episode that
Right.
was 6 or 8 months ago.
Right.
Of course, there's that issue of making sure that your content is up to date or still accurate or relevant. Especially in Dr. Chin's space or in your space, it's medical
Right.
or pharmaceutical or health. So there's always gonna be new developments. That's why it's also important to infuse new knowledge, new information. But that's the beauty of it too, is that you don't have to start from scratch. You can always come back to that episode and then just do an update, which is what Helene from CBD, Dr. Chin's team as well.
Right.
That's more or less what they do, is they update information, and that becomes brand new content that's gonna live on for the next 16 to 18 months. So
I'm curious about one other question. Maybe everybody can answer this stuff here, but people always ask me, what should I do with it once they start a podcast or a video or a live stream or whatever they're doing here? And I help them. We help them plan it. We help them produce it. I don't help them post it and push it and promote it or whatnot. That's up to them. One, because I wasn't sure what to do with some of it myself. And two, because that's a lot of extra effort to do it. And usually I assume that the host has some team, has a marketing person, has a website design team, has a webmaster, maybe has a PR agency, has somebody handling their regular communications and doing this. So they probably have somebody in place to do it. They don't have somebody help them produce it, but they might have somebody help them promote it. And so the question everybody asks me is, what do I do with it? And specifically, where do I put it? In Dr. Trin's case, he was just streaming it live. I kept saying, well, you've already done the effort. Why don't we make it as a podcast too? Why don't we spend a little time and effort to take the recording, polish it, promote it, push it out. There's another potential audience for it. And now you can pull out a little piece of the video and make a YouTube short, or you can put it on Instagram. Everybody's got their strategy for doing this. But the answer I always give is this. What should you do with it? Everything you can. As much as you can, because you never know where your audience is going to find it anymore. You never know. There's platforms that you like and maybe your audience likes, but there's all these new places and new uses for it. And you've already done the hard work. You came up with an interesting topic and a good guest and a good production. Why just put it out over one channel? Why not put it out over multiple channels? And that people are like, oh, I never thought of that. Repurposing, reusing it, as many creative ways as you can. Do you help clients do that? Say, hey, you don't just take your video, don't just take your podcast and put it on YouTube or iTunes. Let's chop it up. Let's reuse it. Let's repost it. Let's do other things with it here. Talk about it. You're getting more out of your investment. The hard part is to come up with a good show and a good topic and a good guest. Why just put it over one channel like we used to do with radio? It went over OC Talk Radio, and that was it. And we never did anything else with it before, during, or after. How do you, what do you tell clients to do with it, and how do you help them figure out what to do with it?
It depends on what the client needs. I think it's a good idea to put your content out there on different platforms, but whenever we engage with clients, we want to understand why they do it and where do they want to put it,
right,
so that we can be efficient in terms of putting their content out there. I think one of the most important thing is that whenever someone desires to have a podcast, it needs to that person needs to understand the purpose of it, so that he can reach out to a specific audience. Just like what you said a while ago, that it can be lost in the sea of audience, because the podcast industry have very wide doors. I mean,
right,
if you want to start a podcast now, you can do so.
Get a mic, stick it in, record it.
Precisely.
There's a very low barrier to entry. Unlike for YouTube, like you need to be more camera ready, you have to have the lighting. For podcasts, as long as you have the message and then you know your why. I mean, you can get started just by a mic, a blue, like a Yeti mic like ours, and then
that's the classic that's been around forever.
The challenging thing is, how are you going to attract your audience and keep that audience to stay with you for a very long time?
That's because Dr. Trinh has a very dedicated group of people now that follow him. They've been to his talks. They've been to his social media. They listen to his live streams. He's got a connection with these people and a consistent way to reach them. So they're expecting, they get a newsletter, they get a subscribe to a podcast, they watch his YouTube channels. Maybe they don't watch them all, but they've got some pattern that he's established. He's created some value, and he does it consistently. He does it persistently. He does it professionally, and they come back over and over again. It's easy to get people to listen once. It's hard to get them to come back a second time.
You said it perfectly, Paul. That's the reason why we want to scale our services to cater to these clients' needs, because podcast is just one aspect.
Right.
In order for you to come up with a good engagement in terms of reaching out your audience. So we do email marketing, we do strategic planning, we do a lot of stuff here in the Clutter to make sure that we were able to help our audiences, our clients reach their target audiences.
So I was going to say, Dr. Trinh, I'm sorry, we're running out of time here. I want to get Dr. Trin's theory or ideas on this here. Has it helped you grow the podcast? Or grow your audience? Or is it just holding on to your audience? Or is it just it allows you to do all this stuff that otherwise you'd give up doing simply because you don't have the time or energy yourself to do it? Is it all of that or any of that?
Absolutely all of it. Let me give you an interesting scenario of the value that this team brings.
Please, yeah.
Because of the podcast. So it was probably a month or two ago, there was an important article in the Journal of Cell, CELL medical journal, that stated, and it's a very prestigious journal. It's hard to get published in this Journal of Cell. And in that article, it was an article on cannabis.
Okay.
And it's like, why would an article about cannabis be in this prestigious medical journal?
Right.
And so what the data shows that was published is that if you use marijuana, your chance of a heart attack or a chance of a heart issues increases over time. And that's what the data shows. And in this journal, the scientists published that there was an ingredient in the plant that actually counters the risk of heart attacks with the use of marijuana.
Okay.
And this is in the flavonoids, the terpenes, right? The oils, right? In the oils of the plant, there was an ingredient that counters that side effect of having potential heart problems when you use cannabis, when you use marijuana. And so we interviewed a scientist in Germany, right? PhD, very smart guy, about this article. And he gave his input about this article, and he's, highlighting, why is this news out there in the world about the fact that if you use marijuana, it could lead to heart problems, but and part of the terpenes, that's part of it, the ingredient may counter that to reduce that risk for heart attack. Why isn't this news out in the world? It should be big news. And it wasn't out, but it was on our podcast.
There you go.
Right. So a few weeks later, I was contacted by somebody who listened to the podcast, and he's in the world of venture capital, and he's in the world of making products in this CBD world, this marijuana world, of making products and things of that sort. And he runs these venture capital companies. And he's like, Dr. Trinh, I listened to your podcast. I like to speak to that scientist in Germany about this. And so we had a conversation all together.
Yeah.
And now they're doing something together, because this venture capital guy wants to get the scientists' help to create potential, products that will help mitigate, heart disease in those who use marijuana. And this came from listening to a podcast that we brought in somebody from, another world, right? So over in Germany. And so it's very interesting, the power of podcasting and the networking.
Because otherwise we're just getting snippets and sound bites. The traditional media, the mainstream media that we all relied upon, newspapers, radio, TV, has shrunk. They don't have much staff anymore. And in so doing, they don't have much time or staff to make sense of it. It's a fire hose. It's a news wire. They just shoot this stuff out. Here's an idea, and you may not get the full story. You probably don't get any analysis. You don't really get any understanding of it. So we're looking to podcasts, to YouTube channels, rightly or wrongly. We're looking for all these things to make sense of the information, not just to tell us about these things, because we don't watch the evening news anymore. We don't read the daily newspaper anymore here. So we're looking to these alternative outlets to learn about stuff, but to make sense of it. That's what's missing. There's so much information and so little sense that we make of all this stuff here. So if these guys can pull out the key things and highlight those, that's a powerful function. It's part of the whole process. They're the curators here. They're the content
curators. I just love that.
Yeah,
I love that term. And just Paul, what Dr. Trinh said now and what you said, that's gonna be on social.
Poof.
So team, take note.
Take note. Because I always tell people in a half hour, yes, you're trying to entertain and you're trying to educate them. You're trying to hold it. The audience is telling you, I got a half hour to kill. I'm in the car. I'm at the gym. I'm taking a walk. I'm multitasking. I've got time to listen to long form content, but it's got to be good. And if you can summarize it, I'll take that summary and share it with the world. So there's an obligation on your part, not just to collect the information, to make sense of it, and then to give them some abbreviated versions that they can then share with their family as a link to do all this. It's a different relationship you have. When I produced radio, we had no relationship with the audience. It was just there were 6 buttons on your car, and we were one of them you hit, and you just randomly hit the buttons. It wasn't hard to get found, but it was hard to get anybody to do anything with the information because it just disappeared. They listened for a second. What was that number? I don't know. Where can I go learn more? There was no follow-up. There wasn't a conversation. It was just It was like a billboard that drove by, and if you didn't write it down or memorize it, that whole information was lost. So it's a whole different world that we're in here. Talk about, Dr. Trinh, why you're in this world. That's the question. We had a guest that came on once. I don't remember who it was. And in the pre-interview, we're talking about this, and the guest had written some big book or something. It was somebody big in the medical world. And he was really grilling Dr. Trinh. What's your ROI? What's your return on all this investment? Show me in dollars and cents. You did this, you made this. You did this, something happened. And you were kind of like, I don't know. I know if I don't do it, none of this stuff happens, but I can't always point to exactly this. You just give them anecdotes. Well, let me give you an example. I did this, and I'm now on the board of some company because they heard about me. Or I did this, and I met somebody, and now I got to talk over here, or I got a connection over here. Are we too obsessed with an immediate result? Should we be more patient?
It's not all about ROI. It's what's your passion, what's your expertise, and what can you share with the world? Yeah. What can you educate them, right? And so I've gone from seeing patients, every 15 to 20 minutes and educating one patient at a time,
right,
to educating now the public.
A ton of people.
A lot of people, right, through these events, through these podcasts, through social media. And so my reach is bigger from this.
Right.
And whatever the ROI is, it doesn't matter. It's about how you can make this world better with the content that you have.
Amen. And that's hard to justify sometimes because there's an expense. You pay me, you pay them, you pay other people. There's an effort on your part. You got to get guests. You got to do things with it. You got to go out and speaking. You got to follow up and do things. There's an effort that goes with this. And if you don't immediately see a payoff, too many people quit. And I'll give you a perfect example. I had a guy did a podcast with me for years until he retired. He did it for 3 months and he quit. This is way back when. And 3 years later, he called me up and he said, I want to restart the podcast. I said, oh, great. I'd forgotten about you. Why? He said, I didn't look at it in the right light. He said, I wanted to go out and have the phone ring immediately. I wanted to put out a podcast and have the phone ring and somebody to hire me the next day. And I'd immediately know, like an ad, I spent so much, I got some back in return. He said, what we didn't realize is the long-term, the slow effect of this thing. He said he was a sales trainer. And he said, we started quizzing people who were calling us out of the blue. Gee, we must be doing something right. Our website must be performing. Our social media must be performing. We'd ask him why. And he said, in your case, people kept coming back and say, I heard your podcast, or somebody referred me to the podcast. Or you don't remember, I was on your podcast 3 years ago, and I'm finally ready to take action and do something. And he said, when we went back and counted it, the money we had made was, I think he used the figure like $300,000-$400,000. Extra business that at first they weren't sure where it was coming from, and they realized it wasn't just the podcast, but it was accumulation of all this stuff these seeds that they'd been planting. Took 3 years to finally sprout up and do it. It was the funnel that they were building that helped bring them business. But it took 3 years for that to come to fruit. They wanted it to come to fruit in 3 days. They wanted the ad to pay off immediately, the social media post to have an impact, the podcast to measure how many people listened to it and how many called immediately. It doesn't work that quickly, I don't think, anymore. Talk about that. Whoever wants to deal with that. I think we live in a world where we want immediate results, but the results aren't always obvious for sometimes years to come. That's a long-term investment to do TikTok, social media, podcasts, YouTube, pay these people to produce stuff. And you're saying, what's happening? What's happening? What am I getting at? Then all of a sudden you stop and you see your business shrink, or people, you realize the power of it only later after you stop doing it. But talk about it. How do you deal with your clients' expectations? They must all want an immediate answer. How many people listened? How many people watched?
Well, analytics and the numbers are important because it helps you reach goals,
Right.
and it helps you gauge your performance. But we are very fortunate, I'd say, that our client list consists of people like Dr. Trinh, who are not just business people, but they have passion and they
Right.
are very committed to their mission, their advocacy. But of course, profit is still a part of it. Now, I would say that there's a saying, slow and steady wins the race. So
Right.
it's not necessarily, and sometimes, honestly, going viral can be a curse in the sense that especially if you don't know what you need to do with that
Right.
instant fame of going viral. I see a lot of businesses on TikTok that, they went viral. They, ordered a lot of inventory, and then after that,
The initial run, it disappeared. Yeah, exactly.
they don't know what to do with their business, and then they become depressed. They don't know how to proceed or move forward. There's a certain level of maturity that comes with handling everything about the business. But yes, I do agree that podcasting and just being consistent online or in the digital space does pay off. I mean, we know of clients similar to what you said, that they were able to get book deals out of their show.
I can give you 100 crazy examples of people that got something they didn't expect. That's not why they did it. It was an unintended consequence of putting themselves out there. They got a job, they got an offer, they got
it's unintended. It is a product of the effort. It might not just be a straight line or a straight journey.
Unexpected then. Maybe it's a bonus that they found by doing it. Well, we're running out of time. There's so much more to talk about here. It's a powerful thing that you guys do. You do it cost effectively because you're in the Philippines, and I guess costs are different and labor is different and other costs are different, but you still have the expertise. I think the perception is too often two problems. One, that I'm dealing with people outside of the U.S. and it's going to be cheap, but cheap isn't necessarily better. They're going to create a lot of garbage or something. And the other expectation I always clarify with people is it isn't important how many people listens. It's important who listens and what they do with it. And I'll give you two examples of that. One was Johnson & Johnson, the biggest product. They produce soap and detergents and deodorants and everything, biggest consumer products company in the world. And a couple of years ago, they shocked the advertising world when they fired their agency, their ad agency. And they said, we're tired of you just telling us how many people saw the billboard and how many people listened to the podcast. We're just tired of these numbers. What did they do? Did they just listen? Did they listen to the whole show? Did they buy the product? Did they share? It's not just about raw numbers. Well, 80 million people drove by the billboard, so that was a good billboard. Well, not if the right people didn't see it. And so we're so consumed with numbers that we just think it's important to get more. More is better. And I have this conversation all the time. I say it's not how many, it's who listens and what they do with it. And if it's good content and they take action, it leads to something, then that one thing might pay for your whole effort of social media here. But inevitably the people say, I say, it's not important how many, it's who. And they say, yeah, I get it, but how many? Is that the only thing we can measure is how many? It's hard to measure this unexpected benefit. It takes time to see that. I want some immediate measurement, and the only immediate measurement is numbers. Is that the only thing that matters?
Absolutely not. We don't focus on numbers. I mean, we've had the president of the Global Alzheimer's Platform on our show, and that's a podcast. We have the CEO of Memorial Care Health Systems on our show, and so it's not always about the numbers.
I mean, I get that the numbers give you a trend. You can see if you're going up or down. You can see if that one works more than this one does. But if you're just focusing on numbers, for example, like I have 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, and it always sounds impressive to me. And yet, I don't really know what I'm doing with it, other than I just keep putting content up, and it's hard for me to justify. Have I gotten a lot of business out of it? Have people called up and said, I want to run an ad, I want to hire you? Not really. And yet I know they're consuming it because I put something up, 100 people, 1,000 people react to it and respond to it. So you got to be patient. You're planting seeds. You don't know how they're going to grow. You don't know where they're going to grow. You're not sure what's going to come to fruit out of all this. But I know that if you don't do it, if you don't have a good website, if you don't have good social media, if you don't create good content, you're going to get lost. And
hey, Paul.
Yeah.
Anne can help you with that.
You think so? Because I don't really know what the back end is good here. I'm appreciative. Give us your website. How do people find you? If the others want to use
Paul,
your
we
service.
should talk.
We should.
After this
We should. Yeah, stay on afterwards because we should talk.
Yeah, but we just want to thank you for the opportunity. We are just super humbled by this. Dr. Trinh invited us, and of course you. Thank you for giving us this platform. Carl, you want to say anything before I give our contact?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what Dr. Tin has said, that if you get past the profit and the numbers and you get the actual value of what you want to give back to the society, that's a time where passion and fulfillment flows in. And we are at Declutter, we are a team of individuals who are committed. And at the same time, we are obsessed to seeing our clients be successful at what they love the most. For us, it's already a win. So when you get the experience to work with us, we are so excited to give you the Declutter experience.
And I'm going to tell you, you should add one other term into that. It isn't just declutter. Declutter just sounds like I'm going to make a complicated thing easier. I'm going to take this off your plate. Whew, thank you. You're going to help me keep this thing going and keep it producing. That's a big part of what you do. But I think there's something else I learned today is that you help clarify. Why are you doing this? Who's listening to it? What else can you do with this? There's an insight you're giving me, like an aha, like, oh, I've already got this. Maybe I should put it here. Maybe I should do this with it. And to clarify, it's more, I'm going to sound Dr. Trinh from Vietnam, very zen here. It isn't, don't worry about the immediate payoff in the immediate moment. What's the goal? Why are you doing this? It's passion, it's education, it's helping the world. So let's figure out how we can amplify that, how we can magnify that, how we can measure that, and how we can make more of an impact. There's a clarification. It's not just taking stuff off my desk. It's helping me make sense of it and do something with it.
Yes, and what you just described is what we call, actually, we have this thing in our team we call the declutter effect, which is, or the experience, which is after they meet with the team, it's like an instant relief that, oh, it's not that hard. Oh, that's what I need to do.
I can continue with my plans.
Yeah, it's just that light bulb moment, that aha moment that happens. So thank you for recognizing that with just a short amount of time. I really appreciate it, Paul.
Well, it's what you guys do is very important to the process here. I think it's underappreciated and not understood. People jump in and think I'm just going to create content by myself, or I'm going to hire somebody to do it, and poof, it's just going to get found and it's going to live on and it's all going to work. And not unless you work at it. There's an effort involved in this. It's like making a movie. When I used to be in the film business, they don't just rush into making a movie. They spend months thinking about it, and they spend months shooting it, and then they spend months editing it, and then they spend months promoting it. There is a whole process they put in place to create good stories. Why do we think we don't have to do that with our own stories? I'll just record it, I'll upload it, done. It's more than that. Yeah. Well, thanks again. How did they get in touch with you? What's the website again? Do we give a website?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So you can find us at teamdeclutter.com. That's TEAMDKLUTR.com. And just to what you said, you have to put effort into it first before it becomes effortless. So I really just want to point that out because Paul, perfectly said it
Yeah.
once again. Lots of great points from Paul. Thank you.
So spell it again, because you spell it in a. Everybody has to be creative. Team.
Yes.
I got that. DK like DK.
Yeah, it's DKLUTR.com, but we're gonna put it in the show notes
Well,
so
I know you will.
everybody can click on it.
I
Yes.
know you will. Well, you got a good team, Dr. Trinh. You're a good team builder. You've built lots of organizations. You're in one. How many businesses?
Totally
Have,
agree.
Yes,
totally
I agree.
Yeah.
how many
Mm.
businesses have you got, Dr. Trinh? I can't never can track of how many different things you're doing. You're here. You're there. Oh, you're on mute there. We
Yeah.
can't. He's still on mute.
Oh, I was just saying I don't remember. My memory's not good.
Yeah. Well, you need to find a memory care. All right. Thanks. Take us out, Dr. Trinh.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on, Ann, Carl, and the team. So grateful for you guys, and hopefully, let's get the message out of what you do. And we'll have you come back sometime, maybe for part 2 or something like that. and
Wow.
discuss more.
There you
That's
go.
a good idea.
Definitely, yeah.
Stick around after we end the call, because I do want to talk to you more offline and find a way to connect, because I do think there are ways we can work together on all this. So it's a
All
team. It takes a team to write stuff. You know,
Yes.
making a movie isn't one guy just writes a script and then goes out and shoots it and does the acting and the directing and the editing and the promotion. Not very often. Usually it's a big whole team of people that put these stories together here. Why should it be any different with our stories? All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. A masterclass in how to make sense of your content creation, your content campaigns. And what can you expect and how do you do it? All that and more. That's part of your health these days. Your healthy business, your healthy message, and your health effect on the world here. Some people helping people do a healthier declutter. On Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studios here at the University of California Irvine's Beale Light Innovation Center.